Hello and welcome to Falling Stars, War of Empires. My name is Daniel, and I'm going to guide you through a typical session of the game. I am playing as the Legion of Reichs, one of the 4 races that vie for control over the Arcus galaxy. In order to achieve victory, I'll have to overthrow the opposing factions using force or manipulation. The bread and butter of any war effort is to build up an army using available resources. This is my home system. Here, I have a number of units at my disposal to expand my empire with. From left to right, I have 2 fighters, 2 ground forces, 2 cruisers, and a carrier. I also have an orbital construction facility, or OCF for short, which allows me to build more units. The building capacity of an OCF is limited by the resources of the planet it is built next to. When I hover the cursor over my home planet, you'll see that I have 1 resource and 4 influence. Influence is used to bend the rules of the game in your favor, but more on that later. Unfortunately, 1 resource is not going to be enough to outmatch my enemies. For this reason, I need to expand using my fleet. To expand, I need to visit another planet with ground units. As you might imagine, ground units cannot travel on their own. The same is true for fighters. I am now going to load my ground forces into the carrier. I shall load my fighters as well, because they can provide decent protection to a carrier, especially in great numbers. Now it's time to explore. Moving units requires fuel. The amount of fuel I have is indicated by the number below the aircraft icon at the top right of the screen. I'm going to allocate fuel in this neighboring system. Fuel allows any number of units to travel into the system, but prevents the units already there from leaving and is consumed at the end of the turn. I'll begin by sending out one of my cruisers to see if the system has a planet I can use. It appears this system does indeed have a planet. I'll now fly in with my carrier and attempt to land ground forces on it. Upon doing this, I am presented with a choice. I can take over the planet to gain its resources and influence every round, or I can barter with them for unique benefit in exchange for their freedom. Note that your interaction with planets may alter your options later on, as the planets themselves have allies and foes. I am going to conquer this planet for its resources. Because of this action, allies of this planet might not be willing to barter with me anymore, for example. Hard feelings aside, I should be spending my resources. To build units, fuel must be allocated in a system containing an OCF. However, once I've placed fuel here, my cruiser will no longer be able to move. For this reason, I should be using it to explore yet another system. Cruisers are great explorers. They can move 2 tiles at a time. I will now place fuel in my home system and build another unit. Here you can see the various units and their characteristics. The upper number represents firepower, while the lower one shows moving capabilities. Cruisers cost 2 resources to build, while other units require just 1. I'm going to build a carrier to help me expand more rapidly. This is all I can do in my turn. I will now let my enemies make their moves. You can see the enemy factions in the distance. On the far right is the Terran Matriarchy in blue. The purple is the Sedoon at the opposite of the game board, and on the left is the Ubariat in red. There is also a rogue fleet in the center, which roams around aimlessly, trying to pick on easy targets. Resources can be spent on more than just units. Investing in technology is a good way to improve your units and gain an advantage in certain situations. You may notice that each technology has a number and color. The number represents how advanced the technology is. You must unlock lower levels of tech before being able to purchase the higher ones of a given color. The 4 main types of tech are red, yellow, blue, and green. Some of the technologies are marked by an X and have a combination of the 4 main tech colors. To invest in these technologies, you must unlock at least the 2nd level of each color that it is a combination of. At this time, I'm not going to purchase any tech. Now that every player has taken their turn, it is time to choose our strategic action for the next round. Strategic actions can provide an edge in various situations. My first choice will be warfare. Each strategic action comes with a supplementary effect. I can choose between them based on the number of times I've used the given strategy archetype. Supplementaries give interesting benefits alongside the strategic action and are worth unlocking. Time and time again, a political agenda may arise and must be voted on by the factions. This is where influence comes into play. The more influence a faction has, the stronger their vote, and the more likely that the outcome will be in their favor. Political agendas can pave your way to victory if properly manipulated. This agenda will make fighters stronger or weaker based on a positive or negative outcome respectively. I'm going to vote positively because later on I'll be relying on my fighters. The next round has begun. The order in which players take their turns will depend on their success during the previous round. At the top of the screen are 4 numbers representing victory points for each faction. From left to right, the first one shows the score of the Terra Matriarchy, then it's my points as the Legion of Reichs, followed by the Ubariat and the Sudun. The ultimate goal in this game is to reach a certain number of victory points before your enemies do. Victory points are usually obtained by winning battles and capturing planets. I can build an OCF in my recently captured system to allow me to spend the planet's resources in future turns. To do this, I must allocate fuel in the system, so I'll send some of my units out first. Once I've done this, I can build an OCF. Note that it will not be usable until the next turn. I will now get into a fight with the Terran Matriarchy using my cruisers. I'll play a tactical action to boost my fleet. The highlighted button opens the tactical actions menu. Every player receives 3 cards per turn and can play them at any time. The Rebel Aid card will spawn a fighter on my side in the upcoming battle. This is the system I would like to attack. Sadly, it's out of reach for my cruisers due to the allocated fuel. However, the strategic action I picked allows me to remove fuel from a system and to move into another one which contains enemies. The supplementary effect also helps a great deal because it spawns 3 fighters to help. Notice how the system now glows in a red color. The highlighted crossed swords button in the lower right corner indicates that a battle is about to happen. It is important to note that while the battle has not resolved, units cannot leave the system. By pressing the crossed swords button, the battle begins. Notice how the battlefield consists of a grid. Ships in the front will be damaged before the ones in the back. Losing a carrier with ground units on board can be quite catastrophic. It's a good idea to move your valuable units behind the more expendable ones, because they can still shoot. Once both sides have finalized their positions, the lock coordinates button will allow the battle to begin. If at any time I decide to rearrange my units on the grid, I can press the regroup button. After I'm done with my changes, I can lock coordinates again to resume the battle. It appears I have won. Notice how my victory points have increased. I now have a total of 2 because I captured that planet earlier. And there's plenty more action where all that came from, but this concludes our brief look at Falling Stars War of Empires. Thanks for watching.